Hi, it's BlunTV's Capital Cannabis Corner with Amy Jenkins and Katrina Orsini. We are discussing CBD today. As many of you guys know, we've talked about CBD, the difference between hemp-derived versus cannabis-derived CBD. There's a big difference there. I'm going to let Amy take over because the news in the space is actually really interesting because there's been a lot of confusion in regards to food infusion, obviously, and topics around what the guidelines are. You know, it's one of those topics that's probably going to be discussed a few times by us, but let's figure out what's going on in this space,
Amy.
You
probably need to discuss it a few times because it's actually really confusing. So right now, CBD is that is derived from the cannabis plant, as we've talked about many times. There is a framework that has been built around that in California to allow for cannabis-derived CBD oil to go into edibles and topicals and other products. In the case of hemp, we are seeing CBD oil that is derived from the hemp plant added to food and topicals and dietary supplements also. But that is currently not lawful in California.
Which is surprising because as we know, hemp-derived CBD does not have THC in it, right? And even that being said, even though it's hemp, not cannabis, there's still issues around it, and it's not lawful.
Correct. It is deemed an adulterated product. And we actually have legislation here in California, AB 228, to clarify that in fact it can be added to food legally. But what's really interesting is the debate that's going on at the federal level over this. So right now there is a tremendous amount of pressure being placed on the FDA to develop regulatory guidelines that further clarify that CBD derived from hemp can be added to food and dietary supplements. And one of the champions of that is Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, a Republican out of Kentucky. Huge hemp growing region. His constituents are demanding this. And so he recently met with the FDA commissioner to urge the FDA to take immediate action. What has been communicated over the last few months is that they believe it will take an additional act of Congress to really clarify that these products can be applied to food and dietary supplements, or it'll take about 5 years. And what Congress, or many members of Congress, are countering with is they're saying, look, we sought and approved an amendment related to hemp in the 2018 Farm Bill. That should be clarity enough. Get rolling.
Right.
So that's,
the argument's there, as we can see, and at the same time, it's even though it's a newly, post Prop 64,
a lot of using it. People are already using it.
And it's also sold, like, for example, hemp-derived CBD products are sold over the counter. People are purchasing it, using it, taking it home, putting it in their foods, and then we're having this dialogue.
We're still having this dialogue. And so there are some additional efforts beyond just general lobbying. There is an amendment that's been added to an appropriations bill urging swift action by the FDA to clarify additional guidance. As I said, there's a senator out of Oregon who drafted a letter just this last week saying we need some direction and guidance by August 1st. So there's a lot of momentum around this. There was even a stakeholder process in May where FDA took testimony from the hemp industry and the cannabis industry. But nonetheless, we're just not moving fast enough, and certainly not fast enough to keep up with the tremendous demand from the public. I mean, the public is consuming these products. The public is applying these products to food, and
we've already gotten in front of the horse, is basically what you're saying. But then we're having these discussions, which sounds like it could be possibly a little delayed in a sense.
That would be an understatement I think, from the hemp community
to say the least, right?
To say the least.
You did mention that there's a bill here in California, though. Why don't we talk a little bit about that bill?
Yeah, we've talked about this bill before. It's a bill that is supported by California's hemp community. It's supported by a vast majority of members in the cannabis community. But what the bill would do is it essentially preempts, if you will, the feds are developing these guidelines, and says, hey, CBD derived from hemp can be added to a food product. It can be added to a dietary supplement, and it is lawful in California. So Cecilia Aguiar Curry is the author. She's an amazing assemblywoman out of Winters, California. She represents portions of Yolo, Solano, Napa. She's got a great district.
Yeah,
And,
all the fun ones.
Yeah, all the fun ones. And she's made this bill a huge priority.
Oh, good.
So that is moving forward. It has cleared, recently it cleared the Senate Business Professions and Economic Development Committee with no opposition. It's going to Senate Appropriations, and we are very, very hopeful that it'll get to the governor's desk and be signed.
You know, living in California, sometimes I think about how lucky we are with the way we think progressively and come together on these types of topics that, to me, are common sense. So thanks for the update, Amy, and we'll keep an eye on the bill here in California, and Amy will report on all of those. And stay tuned with BlunTV's launch of further discussions in the various segments, cannabis related, as well as hemp and CBD. Thanks so much.
Thank you.